Good day and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I'm your host, the voice of reason. In this episode, on the ongoing coverage of the civil war that is taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia, I wanted to have a look at the forces of the Amhara regional government. So, as we know, the Amhara region has formed its own sub-military apparatus parallel to the Ethiopian army. And the Amhara region has been conducting some significant recruiting drives, pressing into service thousands and thousands of both male and, in some cases, female so-called volunteer fighters. There is a significant amount of pressure for these Amharans to join this regional army, this regional force. And these regional forces stem from the regional special forces. And again, these are not normal special forces. These are simply full-time paramilitary formations who have some rudimentary training and are really designed for law enforcement activity against bandits and such. But the Amhara region has basically recruited and started to field its own military, its own army. And unfortunately, a lot of these forces are not very well trained, and they have been recruited in the thousands to start conducting offensive operations against a more experienced force in the form of the Tigrayan Defense Forces. And these forces, meaning the Amhara regional forces, have seen action on a variety of fronts inside of the ongoing conflict that is taking place inside of the Amhara region. And unfortunately for those Amharan semi-conscripts that have been pressed into service, some of the casualties that they are seeing now are really unprecedented. Some of these units have been just obliterated on the battlefield in engagements that have occurred in areas such near Gashina. There was an operation that pressed forces towards Sokoto and Lalibela, and there have been significant engagements in which we've been seeing the Amhara Regional Army engaging forces, the Tigrayan Defense Forces, along the B-22 highway, and we're seeing that also occur along the B-30 highway running from Debark down to Gondar. But the fighting is significant, and the level of casualties that these forces have incurred is also significant as well. And many of these forces, these Amhara regional units, were at a certain point very well motivated and were willing to jump headlong into this conflict. And unfortunately, many of them were not properly trained. They are currently not properly equipped, nor are they re-equipped in the field with basic necessities such as food, and they have to find that for themselves. But they right now, from the information that we are getting at Military and Foreign Affairs Network, is that some of these units are now unwilling to move forward and engage the Tigrayan Defense Forces in offensive actions. And the reason for that is twofold. One, they have really suffered some catastrophic casualties. They have also are not a well-fed force. And simply put, an army travels on its stomach, going all the way back to the Napoleonic era, in which Napoleon said as much. Hence, that is absolutely true. A armed unit that is not supplied, fed, nor equipped for combat could be motivated at the start of the conflict, But once it starts to engage in military operation, comes in contact with the enemy, tastes in certain conditions defeat, and then once it is moved back off of the line, so to speak, it is not resupplied, nor fed, nor taken care of. And that is the challenge that we are seeing right now with the Amhara regional forces. They are able to press large amounts of personnel into conflict and get what would uh, look to be a armed unit stood up. However, that armed unit, again, is not trained. It is not well supplied. And its ability to reconstitute itself after an engagement is very little to none, and that is very important in terms of the nature of warfare. And are these units gaining experience uh, in terms of individual combat abilities? Yes, possibly, but unfortunately for these Amhara regional units, many of them are being pressed into a completely unknown environment and are really taking the brunt end of a lot of the casualties of what is occurring in terms of these forces that are engaging the Tigrayan Defense Forces. Some of them are being simply used as cannon fodder by both Eritrean forces and the Ethiopian army, and it is not turning out well for some of these Amhara regional forces. The biggest issue right now is the amount of units that have been fielded. There is no way to accurately track where a lot of these units are, what the command structure looks like, who they are answering to, and that then creates the inability to supply these units. If there is no real command structure, there is no organizational chart, so to speak, these units a lot of times are simply roaming on their own without any real guidance or understanding on what they should be or shouldn't be doing. But that is a big challenge right now for these, and they have the force structure, they have the body, so to speak, to be pressed into service. But unfortunately, the training is not there. And then once they are engaged in combat, and especially if they go up against a much better trained force that is maneuvering and looking to envelop them, they are really getting the tough end of what is occurring, and that's unfortunate. A lot of these folks are being sent into the field simply to perish, and the casualty levels that we are hearing among these Amhara militias that are being moved to the front to fight the Tigrayan Defense Forces are really horrendous. And I think that is part of what we are seeing in terms of when these troops are then pulled off the line and they interact with Eritrean army units or possibly Ethiopian army units, and that is causing some of the static that we are seeing between the two, the breakdown between these three forces, and a lot of that stems from just a lack of command and control, lack of unity of command that I've discussed in previous issue. But these Amhara regional militias, again, very large formations are being fielded. However, simply very poorly trained, and more important, very poorly led and very poorly equipped and supplied, both prior to and post engagement in terms of just everything, the whole spectrum, medical treatment, the ability to feed and equip is just non-existent for these folks. But a very unfortunate situation. But unfortunately, it's the nature of civil war. Have a great day, everybody.